Good afternoon and welcome to the IDEA tutorial series for technical evaluation of earth retaining systems. This tutorial is sponsored jointly by the Geo-Institute and the Federal Highway Administration. So welcome, and I appreciate that you're being here. This is the second tutorial series. We did have one a couple of weeks ago, just talking about the actual process for IDEA evaluations, the technical system that we use. Today, we are going to present some example evaluations, and then we do have a third one that I'll tell you about at the end of the tutorial, our third and final one talking about how to use IDEA. Today, we are joined by Ryan Berg. Ryan serves as an IDEA lead and team reviewer. Welcome, Ryan. We also joined by Daniel Alzamora of the Federal Highway in their Colorado facility. Jim Collin, welcome, Jim. Jim also serves as a team and lead reviewer, and Silas Nichols, also from the Federal Highway out of the Washington, D.C. office. My name is Jeff Greenwald, and I act as the project manager for the IDEA program. We are trying to expand the understanding of IDEA to make sure that it's understood by vendors who are going to participate in the IDEA evaluation program, as well as users such as Federal Highway Administration, state DOTs, to understand how the IDEA works, how the systems are evaluated, and how you might be able to use those to review mechanically stabilized earth systems in your area. As I said, we had a protocol for technical evaluations. That was number one, and today we are talking about IDEA examples. We will have a question and answer at the end of the tutorial, so please log your questions. Both Silas Nichols and Daniel Alzamora collecting those for presentations at the end of the tutorial. The protocol that we used is a federal highway document. This is available at the GI website. It's the protocol for technical evaluation of earth retaining systems. Everything you see today is based on this guidance document that is published by the Federal Highway. IDEA evaluation activity is at the GI website. You can see the description. And also on the right-hand side, you can see the systems that have been evaluated. Those are reports that are available for public download. So you can look and see how it was evaluated and what system parameters are associated with the evaluation. Tutorial number 2, that's today. What we'll do is we'll hear about new evaluations from Ryan Berg. He's an IDEA reviewer. We'll also hear about system updates, how you might be able to participate in the IDEA program as an update. We'll have a Q&A session and then a wrap-up. And I do want to let you know that this is being recorded and it's archived on the YouTube channel for Geo-Institute, and you can subscribe to that. With that, I will introduce Ryan Berg, and I will make sure that I can get rid of my screen, which I am not seeing exactly right now, but bear with me a minute. I think Ryan has it. Thank you, Ryan, and welcome.
Thank you. So I've been asked today to provide a summary of what a typical technical evaluation looks like, the process we go through, the items that are reviewed, the interactions we have with the wall system supplier, and so forth. So this would be a typical full set evaluation that we'd be talking about here. First of all, I'll talk about the phases of the review that we utilize, and in that talk about how many reviewers are involved with each phase, the timing of each phase, interactions with the submitter, and then note the costs with each phase. Then we'll take a look at the protocols that have been established for the various wall systems to date. We have a total of 7 protocols that have been established. We'll take a look at those. Then we'll look at one of the protocols and take a look at what items are required under that protocol or that checklist. We'll do that by starting out with the main headings and working our way down to secondary headings and individual items. Finally, we'll get down to the final product from this review process, and that's the IDEA report. We'll take a look at the format used for these reports, what a final submittal looks like from the wall vendor system, and quote what the IDEA final report is. And then we'll wrap up with a little summary.
Ryan, before you continue, if I can chime in, could you put your slides on presenter mode?
Well, I thought I had them on presenter mode, so let me back out and see what's going on here. Has that jumped to presenter mode?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So review phases. There are 4 phases involved with the this review process, and we do this for several reasons. As we work through the process with the wall system supplier, they get an idea of what information may be needed to continue with the review process, what may be lacking. They can call a halt and say, let's stop after this milestone. We need to go back to the laboratory, do some additional testing, or let's move ahead, or let us work on a couple of things and resubmit another week and we'll keep moving ahead. So there's different milestones that we utilize, and we'll walk through what we do with each of those milestones, from the initial application to initial review to the detailed submittal review and the final evaluation. So milestone 1, the pre-submittal and application, that's really an administrative function. That is making sure that the applicant's submittal is fully loaded up, has been transmitted to Jeff. The initial payment has been applied. It triggers the development of a lead reviewer selection and a reviewer team selection within the IDEA program. Milestone 2 is an initial review, and typically the lead reviewer will do that by themselves. They will pull in a team if and or as needed, and that's not looking at details, but doing a cursory review, making sure that all the information is there, so we have a chance to go back to the wall system supplier and note if there's something that obviously is missing or where some additional information may be requested. So that just gives the reviewer, the system supplier, another chance to have their submittal critiqued and make some small revisions as needed. Milestone 3 is the bulk of the work. This is where the detailed submittal is completed by the lead reviewer and also by the 3-member review team that assists the lead reviewer. And we could pull in additional review team members if needed for some specialty items. But that's the bulk of the review process. And then milestone 4, the final evaluation, it gets us to the end where the submittal has been revised. Any back and forth between the system supplier and the reviewers, all those questions or comments have been resolved. An idea report has been drafted up, and that goes through by the lead reviewer, goes through the review team member, and then that goes to the system supplier. If there are any questions, suggestions, that goes through one more loop, and then everything is finalized and the report is published on the website. This process is really set up to have interaction with the wall system supplier, the people that submitted this application throughout the entire process, through each of the milestones, particularly 2, 3, and 4. So everything is transparent. And unlike previous programs that ran retaining wall reviews, this is a little more interactive and direct with the wall system supplier. We'll have open discussions on what we're looking for, what we think we may be missing, or suggestions how to better present something within their submittal. We're not going back with just open-ended questions saying we need more information on this or that. We're providing specifics of what we're looking for. And this helps speed up the review process, but I think also provides more value to the wall system supplier and to the end users. Timing, again, this IDEA program is a much quicker process than previous review programs. If the submittal is complete, we would look at the following type of target timeframes: 1 week to complete milestone 1, 2 weeks for the cursory review of milestone 2, 8 weeks for the detailed review, and 1 week for the review of the final report. Now that can stretch out, of course, if there's some interaction with the interaction between the system supplier and the reviewers. If there's additional information that needs to be generated or developed, that may take an additional week or two, depending upon what information is being gathered up. Also noted here is the fee schedule by milestone that the wall system supplier would pay during this process. And again, it's set up at these milestones that if they want to put something on hold, or if they even want to say, no, we don't want to proceed for some reason, then they haven't paid everything up front. They just trigger the fees as they go through these milestones. Okay, so that's the milestone process. Let's look at the protocol or the checklist we use for the different wall systems. To date, we have established protocols for 7 different wall systems. This includes 6 mechanically stabilized earth wall systems and 1 gravity wall system with precast, wet cast concrete modular blocks. The MSC wall systems consist of walls with dry cast concrete modular block facings or wet cast concrete modular block facings, precast concrete panels, and steel mat facings. And then they're also differentiated by inextensible or steel soil reinforcements, and extensible or typically geosynthetic soil reinforcements. So these 4-7 protocols have been established. However, the program is set up to develop additional protocols as and when needed for an earth retaining structure system review. So we're ready to move ahead with reviewing different types of systems. And again, those protocols will be drafted up on an as-needed basis and set out on the website. Additionally, these protocols can be modified as appropriate, and that will be the subject of Jim Collin's presentation following mine. So what does the vendor have to provide with this application? What sort of submittal do they have to put together? Well, it's all listed in the protocol. So let's take a look at an example protocol. In this case, let's look at an MSE wall with concrete panel facings and steel soil reinforcements. We'll walk through the main and secondary headings of what information is provided and individual items. And then I've also tossed one additional slide in here as if we go with the MSE wall with panels and geosynthetic reinforcement, what would be required for the geosynthetic reinforcement materials. There are 6 sections in the typical protocol: earth system components, earth system design, construction, quality control, performance history, and then any additional information the supplier would like to provide. Under components, section 1, for this particular wall system, an MSE wall with concrete panels and steel reinforcement, the primary components are the facing unit, the inextensible steel reinforcement, and then the other appurtenant components, which we'll list in a couple slides here. For the facing unit, first of all, is there any innovation with this facing unit? And we'll see that question come up, or that box to check with just about every one of these individual listings. Is there some sort of innovation with this system? Again, this IDEA program is trying to help promote innovation in addition to coming up with standardized review reports. So is there an innovation? What type of facing units are there? List each one, provide specifications for each one, dimensions, tolerances, concrete properties, and then some of the appurtenant facilities, the shear, alignment, and bearing specifications and drawings and details to go with these panels, the filter specs for the panel joints, good presentation of the aesthetic options of the wall panels, and then what do you do on corners and curved walls with these wall panels. The steel soil reinforcement, is there an innovation? What types of reinforcements are used? So what types of grades, thicknesses, dimensions, geometry, so forth? What are the steel properties, the ultimate strength, the yield strengths? What sort of corrosion protection is provided on this steel? What are the calculated sacrificial steel losses for 75, 100-year design life? That'd be after other corrosion protection has been lost. Are there any corrosion test results to present? Dimensional tolerances, and then connection details and drawings, description of the connection device, and then with that device, what are its properties, what's its corrosion protection, sacrificial steel, test results, detailed drawings and tolerances, and connection strength test reports. Once we work through the connection, then we're also looking for the soil reinforcement interaction properties and pull out and interface shear strengths noted here, number 16 and 17. If we had a system that had geosynthetic reinforcement in lieu of a steel reinforcement, again, we'd be looking for innovations, a listing of the styles or grade of reinforcement, specifications for each grade. And here it's a much shorter list because we are generally relying on a AASHTO NTPP report for geosynthetic reinforcement. And all that information, many of those, the strengths, the reduction factors and so forth, all of that would be contained within the NTPP report. And it's not a full requirement, but it's certainly a strong recommendation to have an NTPP report available to go into an IDEA report. If not, then a custom checklist would have to be developed and probably a custom cost as well. It would be a variation of one of our existing protocols. Then similar to steel, we look for connection information, connection strengths, and then soil reinforcement interactions if it's a geosynthetic. Okay, let's go back to the steel reinforcement with concrete panel example. The third component would be other items. What's the specification for the reinforced soil? What type of drainage may be built into the system, internal and or external? What type of copings are available with this system? Types, dimension, construction details, so forth. What sort of traffic barriers are used with this type of wall system? And what sort of construction joints are used? What are the specifications, plans, and elevation views, and so forth? So that takes us through section 1, material components. That takes us into section 2, design, and section 2.1 is design methodology. Is there an innovation with this system that uses a different design methodology? In our example today, likely not. We're just using a standard MSE wall with steel reinforcement. Describe the design methodology, provide references, and then also provide design and details for obstructions within the reinforced fill. And then 2.2, 2.2 are design examples. There's 2 examples required here to be provided by the wall system supplier. Just typical level backfill, traffic surcharge on top of a wall, and a wall with a 2-to-1 slope. And this can be, what we're looking for are design properties summarized here. Design analysis, if we use an MSEW program, is preferred. If they use something in-house, we'd also like to have the MSE design output. In some cases, they'll supply some hand calculations as well, but that's not a requirement. That takes us to the third item in the protocol, and that's construction. Is there any innovation with the construction of this type of wall system? We're looking for a full construction manual for the contractors and end users. We're looking for details and information on placement of facing units on curves and corners. We're looking for details and information on how to place a soil reinforcement on curves and corners in the wall system. We're looking for facing alignment control procedures, reinforced soil placement procedures, erosion protection procedures during construction, and are there any contractor pre-qualifications for the system? Is there something unique that the contractor should be pre-qualified? And again, each of these items we typically see something written up on it and then something appended to it with more information, particularly if there's testing. And under each of these items in the checklist itself in the protocol, there is a column that says yes, no, as far as being provided, or not applicable column that something might not be applicable to a particular wall system. This takes us to the fourth section in the example protocol, and that's quality control. We're looking at quality control of manufacture of materials. That's the facing units, the earth reinforcement, and then any of the appurtenant facilities, the shear, bearing pads, the connection devices, and so forth. So we'd be looking for quality control manuals to be appended and a summary of the quality control procedures used for each of these materials. Quality control, next item is quality control and construction. So what quality control measures are used, what are recommended for contractors' use, for agencies' use, and so forth, and are those referenced in the construction manual that was discussed previously. The fifth area in the protocol is performance. So where was the system developed? When was it developed? Where has it been used? So that's sort of summary information. And then we'd like to note what the 3 oldest structures are, what the 3 tallest structures are, and then under 5.1.4, a list of private and public sector users who have approved the system and contact information for them. And then 6, other information. This takes us to the end of the protocol, and this just gives the wall system supplier an opportunity to include any additional relevant information that they'd like the reviewer to have that may not have been addressed in the above items. So again, in the evaluation process, that takes us through milestone 3 as we work through all of the submittal, work through the protocol, through that checklist, review all of the laboratory test reports, review all of the design parameters and so forth. And with that, again, there's interaction with the wall system supplier. They may be asked to clarify or add to or subtract to their submittal, or there may be inconsistencies between an appendice and a section pointed out that needs to be clarified and so forth. So the wall system supplier will make those additional clarifications, resubmit an updated submittal, and the IDEA reviewer will draft a final report, send that to the wall system supplier for their review and input, and then be finished with the process and issue the final report to the website. So I keep talking about an IDEA report. And it's a different format that you may be used to, say, with the old high-tech program. So we're going to take a look at an example final report, and we're going to kind of discuss what a, quote, IDEA report actually is. The intent with the reports and what we are producing are reports that are in a consistent format. They're not hard printed. They are online. They're available at the Geo-Institute website. So they're readily downloadable to users at no charge. And being on the website, they could be revised or updated as if needed. And what you'll see from what the IDEA contribution is to the submittal really is just a few pages summarizing the IDEA reviewer findings, and then the full submittal is attached to those findings. So you, the user, basically has everything that has been submitted and has been updated in regards to their to the wall system supplier's report and their appended supporting information. We saw a numbering system in the protocol we just walked through. That numbering system is carried through also with the wall system supplier's report and with all of their appendices. So that makes it easier for the reviewers up front, but makes it much easier for the end users to be able to take this information and utilize it and find items quite readily. Well, let's take a look at an example report. In 2018, the IDEA program finished their first review was for the Vista Wall Stabilized Earth Wall System. The final submittal by the wall system supplier after the different milestones and the interactions and revisions was a total of 1,036 pages. The quote idea report or findings was a 6-page summary, and that actually is presented first, and then the full 1,000+ page submittal is appended to that. So again, you, the end user, have all the information that was used in the review process. The Vista Wall submittal, again, over 1,000 pages. That consisted of upfront a 50-page report with text and drawings and summaries walking through each of these items that are listed in the protocol, again, following the same numbering system. And then approximately 1,000 pages appended to that 50-page report. And that's where you find the detailed test reports, test interpretations, detailed drawings, example calculations, installation guides, QC recommendations, and so forth. So all of that is appended. But again, that appendice is set up, again, following the numbering system, so they're readily available, readily located by users. And again, the submittal that is attached to the idea reviewer findings is the final submittal that has been reviewed in this review process. It has been revised in this review process. So on the Vista Wall, we'll take a quick look here at the idea reviewer's findings that goes up front and before with the full submittal attached to it. And after that, I will turn over to Jim. So this is the findings just up front, what was submitted by who, what submittal checklist was used. Is there confidential information that was provided by the wall system supplier that is not contained in this submittal? In this case, there was not any, but in prior reviews, there has been a case where there have been some reports that the wall system supplier cannot, for some reason, release those reports. So they may be available to the reviewers, but not provided to the in the online version. And if so, we will note that so you're aware of it. A description of the system, the history of the system summarized, system properties, and in this case, what types of steel soil reinforcements are used, what type of connection is used with this system. There were a couple different connections. This review just reviewed one of the available connections, so that had to be clearly stated. And then kind of point out things that may be different, things that may not be directly covered in AASHTO or FHWA. In this case, this soil reinforcement was a strip grid or grid strip reinforcement, as they call it, a 2-wire grid. So that's a little different material that's covered in current AASHTO specifications. So we talk about what tensile resistance factor is used for that and the justification for it. That's a little something different. And then also talk about the soil interaction with that, because that's a little different given this geometry of this reinforcement. The wall system supplier did not claim any innovations, but we felt that the resistance factor and the soil interaction was an innovation because of something that fell out of current guidance. So those were highlighted. And then finally, a conclusion. First of all, note that in this, through these milestones of the review process, there are more than 50 comments and questions that were exchanged from the reviewers to the wall system supplier, and all of those were addressed and clarified, or report the submittal revised to address all of those. The finding is that it has been very thorough in responses. There are no outstanding issues, and we have the summary report here, the summary findings presented, and again, the full detailed submittal by the wall vendor is attached. So we have idea report, which is a summary of findings, Behind that is the 50-page VistaWall support, submittal, again following the protocol numbering. Behind that are all the appendices, 1,000 pages approximately, and again following the numbering system of the protocol. And to review, again, this provides a consistent report available to users online. And again, it's easy to use. We just have summary findings with the full submittal attached. And again, we follow the protocol numbering system. Of the 3 reports that are currently published, listed on the website, the VistaWall system 6-page summary with over 1,000-page submittal, Anchor Diamond Wall 4-page summary with 600 pages appended, Keystone 5-page summary report, and 450 some pages with the wall vendor submittal. So finally, the benefits of this type of reporting process, this type of protocol system, is that the agencies and owners, engineers, designers end up with a consistent expert evaluations, easy to use reports, and at no cost to them, the agency or the firm or the clients. And benefits to the system suppliers, again, is a consistent expert evaluation and a single cost for a report that is widely accepted throughout the nation. And with that, I will turn it back over. I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to apologize already. There's evidently a little construction work outside of my office currently with some background noise. I hope that's going to go away momentarily, but hopefully everybody can hear me. And I'm going to, Ryan did a great job. Thank you for that presentation, going through all of the details of our full evaluation. I would like to spend just the next couple of minutes, it won't be long, to talk about an update evaluation, what's involved with an update, and how it differentiates from a full evaluation. And the protocol that was developed for IDEA includes a mandatory 5-year update of any evaluation. And this is really to make sure that our evaluations are up to date with changes to the AASHTO requirements for retaining walls, for changes to the systems that may occur. And so we really envisioned in the beginning of IDEA that we would be doing more update evaluations than new evaluations. Currently, of course, that's not the case. We have 2 full evaluations. We have 2 additional full evaluations that are currently under evaluation, and this one update evaluation that I'd like to walk through as an example. So one of the big differences is obviously the update is a streamlined evaluation. You'll notice here the cost is $10,000 for an update evaluation, $25,000 less than the full evaluation. And we have the same milestones, but the time to complete these milestones is 6 to 8 weeks versus the 12 weeks for a full evaluation. So some big differences there that I think are worth pointing out. Now, this first update evaluation was for the Key System 2. This system had a high-tech evaluation that was completed in 2012, and the system suppliers came to IDEA and wanted to get an update of their system. So that they came to us. We developed a checklist for the update evaluation. It's again streamlined compared to what Ryan presented. There are 2 main areas. One is the facing unit, and 2 is the reinforcement and changes to those. And then there's a couple ancillary questions. You'll see for the facing unit, the first question is, does the system contain what you would consider to be an innovation to the facing system? So when IDEA was developed, the technology is really quite mature at this time, and we wanted to develop a way for system suppliers to get innovation into the system. So that's the first question here. For this update, there was not considered any innovation in the update. The next question was, has the facing unit changed since the original evaluation? And in this case, it had. And then you would have to also then supply connection data to go along with that. And then for the reinforcement, the second part, does the reinforcement contain an innovation? Has the reinforcement changed? Is there an NTPP report for that reinforcement? And then, of course, the short and long-term connection strength would be required, and then pull out. And then the final additional information, does it have a high-tech evaluation? And if so, that's to be provided. And if not, does it have a system evaluation from an independent consultant that was done in the past? So many state DOTs require evaluations. Many system suppliers went to consultants to do those evaluations in the past. And so if those are available, we're requesting that. So for this key system 2 update, really the only difference was the change in the unit, the compact unit. So the compact 2 unit was the original unit supplied, and they modified that to the compact 3. You can see here there's a little change in the geometry. The compact 2 is a little lighter unit than the compact 3. So that was the change. And with that change, of course, the connection testing had to be updated. The interface shear between the units had to be updated. They did have an NTPP report that had actually been updated since the 2012 IDEA submittal. And so that was a 2019 NTP report. The geosynthetic reinforcement had not changed since the original submittal. So that again streamlined the evaluation. And they had to submit, of course, their interface shear testing and the interpretation of that testing, as well as the connection testing of the compact 3 unit with the geogrid reinforcement. So like the evaluation reports that Ryan showed, this report was a 5-page report with the same sort of items that Ryan highlighted already. The one thing that Ryan left for me to maybe discuss is in these reports, we have a summary table of properties for the system that can be used in the MSEW software program. And so we think this provides tremendous value to the DOT. So it allows them to, using MSEW, check a vendor's design with the properties that have been evaluated for that system. So that is the update evaluation. Again, this one was complete within 6 weeks, and that included interaction with the system supplier needing for some additional information. So it was a relatively quick evaluation. I think the system supplier was very happy with the end result. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Silas Nichols, who I think will be managing the question and answer session.
Thanks, Jim. And yeah, I've got a lot of questions for you guys. For those of you who are actually watching online, if you have your YouTube in like full screen view, you probably can't see the chat box. And so you'll have to reduce that in order to see the chat box and ask questions. While we are waiting on questions to come in, I will take the mantle here and I will ask a few questions myself of you too. So questions that were on my mind. How is the review team put together? How do you guys choose the members, and how is that sort of administered?
So I'll take that, Ryan.
Thank you.
So we have a group of subject matter expert consultants that are on the IDEA evaluation panel. And for any evaluation, a group of 4 experts are assigned to that. And who gets assigned is a function of several things. One, workload of the consultants themselves. We want to make sure anybody that's going to be doing an evaluation is dedicated to get it done in the time constraints. We want to make sure that there's no conflict of interest with any system supplier and consultant, so that goes into that. And so it's really going through our list of consultants, seeing who's involved currently with an evaluation, who's available, and then putting that team of 4 together. Once that's together, we then reach out to the system supplier and propose the team to the supplier, who those consultants are. And then that system supplier, we give them the option, if there's an individual that they think they might have an issue with, they can opt to have one individual replaced. So we want to keep it transparent, but give them somewhat of a say in who's on that team.
Okay, quick follow-up. I know that Daniel Alzamora is part of this group because, well, he works with me. But how can state DOT personnel or people in industry be involved with this oversight committee, or can they?
Yes, so that's a great question. So we do have, I believe, 5 state DOT engineers that are part of the high-tech evaluation committee. We would welcome other state DOTs that would like to be involved to contact. They can contact Jeff Greenwald to put their name in. But yes, it's important that we have users on the committee as well as system supply, or as well as our experts.
Okay. Question from Amjad Al-Zubi, and I apologize.
We lost you, Silas.
See there, Aaron? Hating the Federal Highway Administration. So a question from Amjad Al-Zubi. If I've now butchered that twice, I apologize. But his question was, if a manufacturer received a certification to their system via the high-tech process, do they need to go through the IDEA program? And if so, why? So
I'll take that also. So first, the high-tech was not a certification, it was an evaluation, just like the IDEA system. So I want to clarify, it's not a certification, it's evaluation. Why would anybody go through a second? Because the high-tech evaluations are, in my opinion, dated, and materials change, how they're manufactured changes. And so we want to provide the DOTs with current evaluations that account for changes in how these materials may be manufactured or changes in code.
Okay.
Silas, can I add something? This is Daniel.
Yes, please.
As in Jim's example of the updated high-tech evaluation for the Keystone system, that was a 2012 high-tech evaluation, so that's 8 years old, and they have made some changes to their facing that may impact the interaction between the system components. So that's what that update is meant for, and it's meant to be a short, focused evaluation to bring that system evaluation to its current, the current system that's actually being supplied to the users. So that's I think the benefit of having that updated evaluation.
Yeah, and I think it's important that both you and Jim have said it, that this process is meant to stay current with any evolution that's going on in systems that are out there. And so, the idea that high-tech is a relatively old system that really didn't have a maintenance or update structure to see what changes or evolution were going on in systems was one of the reasons why we went into developing IDEA. So, hopefully the program as it evolves and as it is implemented will handle some of those types of problems going forward. Matt Willis, approximately how many agencies, DOTs, have adopted the IDEA review process for their method of evaluating wall systems for approval? And what is being done to encourage DOTs to adopt the IDEA program? And before I throw this off to you three, I'll answer the second one first, and I'll give you two the harder one. But the second one is Federal Highways, in conjunction with the Geo-Institute, is working now on an implementation package for IDEA. So part of that is this webinar series. For those of you who missed webinar number 1, you can find that here on the YouTube channel for the ASCE Geo-Institute. And you can watch those two. We have a third one coming up here shortly that Daniel's going to be delivering in November. But we also have a contract out right now to start the process of identifying what state departments of transportation need in addition to what the protocol currently is for IDEA. So in the first webinar, we identified the 15 states that we're working with currently to build out the IDEA program so that you can see not only what the protocol standard looks like, but what other additional things might be requested of you by a state in order to accommodate their requirements for wall evaluations. So we are taking an active approach to helping Geo-Institute administer this program and making it worthwhile to state departments of transportation. Daniel, do you have a feel for states that have adopted so far?
Sorry, just getting myself off mute. States are beginning to incorporate some language to allow IDEA evaluations as alternate to high-tech evaluations or replacements of high-tech evaluations, but that's still an ongoing process. I don't have, I couldn't give you a number at this point in time.
Okay.
But Daniel, do you have an idea of how many accept high-tech approximately?
Yeah, majority of the states in the country would consider a high-tech evaluation as a form or as a tool to help them in their approval process for their pre-approved list of vendors for them.
Yeah. So as we're working through this project, I think what we're finding is that state DOTs are accepting IDEA in lieu of high-tech, but it may not quite be formalized in their published procedures or something yet, but the personnel that understand it, yes, will accept that. So, yeah, I agree that it's maybe a little slower to be put in print, but in practice, I think that this is being very well accepted out there.
Yes, and I think it's just going to take a little time for the language in specification, project-specific specifications, or their general specifications to be modified to accommodate these changes. But I'm hoping that through our assistance with Silas and I and the work that we're doing with the Geo-Institute that will help facilitate that process.
From Tom Jepson, your section 1.26 on corrosion testing results, Ryan. What if the supplier chooses to utilize the AASHTO model only? Would any other model be accepted?
It certainly would be evaluated. Yes, it could be evaluated, and we'd go through that as reviewers. We'd make sure we've got a corrosion specialist as part of the review team, and we would have discussions back and forth with the system supplier and discuss, here are our findings, are those, and this is what we'll put in our summary report and what recommendations we'll make.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point to reemphasize that this is a technical evaluation protocol for new systems and innovations. So in some cases, many cases possibly, we will be outside of what standards and specifications would tell us we're supposed to be. And so we will have to figure out ways to evaluate those, correct?
That's correct, and I think you know, the biggest value to end users in that is to clearly state where there are differentiations like that or exceptions to current practice, not, you know, and what our findings are, but to make sure that the agencies are cognizant, okay, this differs and this is how it differs, and we accept that.
Okay. And I'm going to hopefully not screw this up, Cameron Ghani, is there going to be an additional cost for supplier vendor to the supplier vendor for state supplemental evaluations?
I can handle that. Maybe I was trying to address that. We're not anticipating that the IDEA reviewers would provide any supplemental information to a report for state suppliers. That the suppliers themselves would take their IDEA report, provide what additional information a state may or may not require, and submit that to the proper people at a state. So that's something that's beyond the IDEA program, but we're providing that information on the website to help the vendors with a roadmap on broader acceptance of their wall systems.
And you know, I would just add, my hope is that most state DOTs will hopefully take a look at what's being evaluated in the IDEA evaluation, and hopefully consider that as a full evaluation with maybe a few minor exceptions for their specific practice in their state. And the IDEA evaluation would cover the majority of the issues that they're concerned about when accepting a system in their state.
So obviously this webinar features FHWA people on it. It was a protocol developed by the FHWA, but it is administered by the American Society of Civil Engineers and the Geo-Institute, well, the Geo-Institute of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And so there's this sort of implicit thought that all of the wall systems would be U.S. wall systems that are only being used for state highway departments of transportation. But can we use systems that are from outside of that? Can we evaluate systems from Europe or from Asia or from other walks of life? Jim, you're muted. Jim, you're muted.
Thank you, Silas. My background noise disappeared, so I can stay off mute. Yes, we actually are having discussions with a system supplier from Europe right now about evaluating a system. And that particular evaluation, we're unclear at this stage, but I think that's for that system to become brought into the U.S. for use. And so we're having discussions on testing that may have been done with other standards and how those may have to be interpreted for U.S. practice. But yes, we're encouraging system suppliers from all over the world to consider the IDEA evaluation.
Okay, great. A follow-up from Amjad Al-Zubi. The reference he was making earlier was to a manufacturer who got an evaluation from High Tech last year. So this is a recent evaluation. How does a DOT proceed with system acceptance, with the system acceptance process, knowing that the IDEA program is now in place to replace High Tech?
Well, the next time they want an update of that high-tech evaluation in 4 years, they should request an IDEA evaluation. I mean, right? I think if an evaluation by high-tech has been completed in the last 5 years, in my opinion, it's obviously still a current valid evaluation. If it's more than 5 years, then it should be updated with an IDEA evaluation. So that's how I think we would address that.
Yeah, and I think from Federal Highway's perspective, this is a reminder to state departments of transportation that, you know, the development of approved lists and the acceptance of systems is actually a state responsibility. The protocol itself is just a means to assist you with that process. So if you have a recent high-tech evaluation, as Jim said, then you can use that to determine whether or not a system is acceptable for use in your state or for use on a specific project. Once you get past a window where that evaluation is no longer relevant, then you'd start to look to the IDEA program to help you out with evaluating updates or changes or innovations to that system. So what's the difference between a new update and a change to a system? How long is a new system new before you have to start thinking about it as a change or an update?
I'm not sure I'm following the question. I think for an update, we're 5 years. If within that, if after an evaluation of the system supplier has come up with a change or an innovation, something that is better for their system, then it would be time to have that change evaluated, right? If the system changes, it should be updated. I think is the bottom line, right? And so even though you have an evaluation that's less than 5 years old, if the reinforcements change, if the connections change, if something's changed, then an update would be warranted to address that change.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a really hard question. How much change is change?
You sound like the lawyers that cross-examine me. They wanted to quantify.
As some family members in the business. That's all.
Yeah. I don't know how we can quantify that right now, but
okay.
If, you know, I think that would require somebody submitting and saying, you know, or maybe it would be a DOT that says, we know that this system has changed a little bit. Does it require, in your opinion, a reevaluation? That's where I would think we might get that question, right? I would think.
Mm-hmm. And I would think that if a design or analysis parameter changes with this update, that it should go through a reevaluation. If it's maybe a detail change or something, but it doesn't change the basic design parameters or construction procedures, then that may be more termed an update. We haven't addressed those yet, but that might be something that lends itself to these reports being online and being updatable, that there may be a third kind of classification that is minor updates or something. I don't know.
And just as a follow-up to that question, Jim, just for the benefit of our participants, you know, what if there is no change to a system within a 5-year period? How do we would we address that? We haven't had that situation yet, but how we might anticipate that addressing that situation?
Well, I think we'd have to, there would still be a submittal process, and it would involve so if it's a geosynthetic, it would involve the geosynthetic manufacturer submitting a certified letter saying that the manufacturing process hasn't changed, the material's unchanged, submit the most current NTP report. The same sort of thing with the facing, I would imagine. So I think it could be a really simple, quick update. Not yet priced, but it would be less than $10,000, I guess, because there's very little to do there. So,
but in addition to the system changing, the AASHTO and FHW guidance could change within that 5-year window, and that may be part of the update as well.
Correct.
Okay. What if I submit a system and it's going through? Would I be informed? Is there a way to tell me that there's not enough information, that I need more testing, that I haven't met the minimum requirements? How would I know that going into the process? what's the communication structure with the oversight team if I'm a vendor?
It's really an open communication structure between the reviewers and the wall system supplier. So the milestones are set up that the pre-submittal checklist, while we're not looking at information in detail or numbers, does it look comprehensive? And that's the first opportunity for the reviewer to say, there seems to be a big gap here in your data or something's missing. We got a concern. Let's talk about that. And then as we get into the milestone 3 and the detailed evaluation, that sort of issue could be located then. And the discussions would simply or typically would be, all right, we don't see enough information, or the more typical is you have test reports, but you haven't interpreted them. You know, you need to go back and interpret these results and justify the design parameters you're using. So again, it's an open communication system to work really for the client with the wall system supplier to make sure we have effective and timely communications.
And I might add to that, Ryan. So if you remember that within the milestones, there are different fees associated with those. So at any stage, if it's identified that maybe there is extensive testing that's still required and the system supplier is bulking at doing that, they can always opt out of the rest of the evaluation and kind of end it at that point. We hope that does never happen, but there is that vehicle for the system supplier if in fact it turns out there just is so much information that's missing that they've decided it's not worth them continuing with the evaluation.
Okay. And I know that when we set up the protocol, one of the things that we wanted was a bad term to use in this day and age, but we wanted some transparency in the process. We wanted DOTs or others to be able to see what the process looked like as it was going on. Could you just sort of talk to access to the process, what people can see, what people cannot see, when they can see it as a system is going through the evaluation process?
Sure. So during the evaluation process, we have the evaluation team of 4 experts, and those are the people that are involved with that evaluation. So really nobody else can open up and go in and see what's going on. So that evaluation is done with those 4 individuals. When that's complete, the evaluation report is sent to the whole committee for their information. But so that's really how we're approaching that.
Michael Bernardi is trying to ask a question about NetPep, but I'm unsure what his question is. So I will make one up on his behalf. How is NetPep incorporated into this process?
Hey, it streamlines the evaluation. So if you don't have NetPep, you're going to pay more. We haven't done an evaluation without it. NTPP submittal, a geosynthetic without one. So, but it will be a slower process because we'll have to do that work that NTPP has done, and it'll cost more money. So how is it incorporated? It's part of what we ask for. We go through that NTPP report, and we may have questions about it and may ask questions, but basically it's part of the data set that we use to do the evaluation.
Michael, following up, why is it not mandatory?
Because we leave people the option to do things other ways, and they may be fine. I mean, somebody may have all of that testing done, may have it more rigorous than NTPP, but they didn't go through NTPP, and so we've left that open that we will consider that.
Okay. I know that we are running a little over time here. I'll ask one more question here. What design properties are required to get started with this thing? What are you evaluating? I mean, it was pretty much laid out in, I think, Ryan's outline, but what are we looking at with respect to evaluation?
Well, so if whoever asked that question, if they'll go to one of the idea evaluations, you'll see the table of design properties that each evaluation has. And so part of the evaluation is to go through and justify or, check those design values to see if they're appropriate. So that's there. So it's from the long-term strength of the reinforcement to the connections to the interface to pull out. All of those things are evaluated and are in that table of properties. And then with that table of properties, if you have MSEW, you can easily check a design from a system supplier with those verified properties, if you will.
Okay. Last question.
Additionally, the other properties, material properties required would be those that would be used for quality control, ultimate strengths, whether it's concrete or steel or geosynthetic, for example.
Good. One last question, a third follow-up from Michael. What about plant audits?
Well, so it's COVID. We're not doing any plant audits. No. So we're reviewing QA/QC documents for the manufacturing of the system, but we're not doing audits of those.
I think that's part of quality control, quality assurance at a different level. That's outside of the scope of what IDEA is designed to do.
Right.
All right, with that, we'll close out the questions. If you have additional questions, I'm sure we have a mechanism to actually take them on and answer them, but I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Silas. Very much appreciate that. Thank you all for your time. I do want to let you know that we have the third in the series, and in that one, we're going to take the information from 1 and 2 and talk about incorporating IDEA for reviewing MSC systems. Please mark your calendar for the 19th of November at 2 p.m. Eastern. That may be standard time, but we will have a registration activity for that. This video has been recorded, so you can see it on the YouTube channel. If anyone needs any further information or there was some questions that may not have been answered, you can send that on to my email address, and I will make sure that I will ask one of these experts to follow up and get your question answered. And then finally, I do want to have a reminder to invite you to Carl Terazaghi Day, the father of geotechnical engineering. You can see that on the GI website. And for that, there will be a webinar with a keynote speech from the ASCE president. Again, thank you for your time. Very much appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you on the 19th of November. Have a great day and stay safe.
So long.